Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and if you've just stumbled across this podcast, then welcome. What this is about is conversations with musicians from all genres and none, and cross genres and all sorts of things. And this latest episode features a conversation with Greek lyre virtuoso Theodore Koumartzis. So this is world fusion, world music, however you want to categorize it, but it is simply beautiful. And what you're listening to right now is Anthemusa, Theo and Tita. And you can hear the lyre on this really clearly. So I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Theodore. Thank you for joining me on Harmonious World. This is very exciting.
It's also exciting for me to talk with you today.
Yeah, I don't think I've interviewed a lute player. I don't think I've interviewed a lyre musician.
The lyre actually, it is connected somehow with the lute family, the pear-shaped musical instrument. But yeah, we talk about an instrument that goes really, really back in time, like much before than the lute. An instrument that is relative to the lute, going back to ancient Greece, is an instrument called pandoura. Pandoura was an instrument that is depicted, played mostly by women, and considered to be like the grandfather of the lute.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So I can explain to my listeners that we were introduced by Danae Blase, who I've interviewed on here, and who, in fact, I went to her recording session at Abbey Road in London in November. She's an amazing musician, and she suggested that I speak to you because are you appearing on her next album?
Actually, we collaborated with her because she ordered an instrument from Greece, a reconstructed ancient lyre made by my father Anastasios Koumartzis and my elder brother Iordanis in my village, Nevropolkikis. And this is how we first got in contact. Anna is living mostly in the United States. This is based there. Unfortunately, we didn't make it yet to the States. We've been last year to Canada, to Vancouver and Vancouver Island to perform there. And hopefully this July, we will have the chance to meet each other. We will go to the MIM, to the Museum of Musical Instruments in Phoenix, in Arizona. And then we'll also travel to San Francisco for some concerts and the ancient Greek lyre workshop.
Okay, fascinating. So tell me a little bit about how you began to play the lyre.
Actually, my personal experience started when I was a kid, starting to play the piano for a few years when I was in primary school. And then I had experience with a lot of string musical instruments, mostly with the classical guitar, but also, or the Spanish guitar, as many people know it, but also with instruments like the ukulele, the charango, which is an instrument with many strings coming originally from South America, and some contemporary Greek musical instruments like the bouzouki, baglamas, djouras. And I started to play the lyre almost 8 years ago. I started not only because my father is a luthier, but also because I had a big personal interest about this wonderful musical instrument. And the more I started to play with her, the more that I realized that there are many things many different techniques that can be applied in this instrument. But also there is a lot of music that can be composed in this instrument, can also be performed, music from ancient Greece, from ancient Rome, but also contemporary music.
Yeah. Harmonious World itself as a podcast goes back to the idea that if we all share something of what we're good at, the world would be more harmonious. And I think music has been doing that for centuries.
Totally. It's quite interesting because in Greece, the word harmony, maybe it's also in English, but in Greece, the whole harmonia, and what it has to do about the balance and this kind of concept of harmony as we understand about this. But in the same moment, it's a kind of a point of view about many other things as well, about of course, the condition of the psychological condition of a person, but also has to do about aesthetics, all about architecture, all about mathematics, and all of this that all these great people talked about has to do with something that, in my opinion, is universal. And somehow we've lost this kind of continuity, unfortunately. We've lost some part of this information. But again, through music, I believe that we can get into there because music, like art, is there to provoke feelings. And this is something that I think didn't change so much the last 4 or 5 thousand years of, yeah, the first musical instruments were played back
Yes.
in Greece.
Yes. And Greece, I think we regard as kind of the starting point, don't we, perhaps of sort of formalized music.
hmm Actually, the oldest depicted stringed musical instrument is called the lyre of Ur and goes back to ancient Mesopotamia, where also systematic agriculture started from a few languages, a few of the oldest languages that we know nowadays. So we believe that, of course, this is based on what it's found to our day. If tomorrow an archaeologist will find something different, we'll have to somehow reform all of this history line. But it's quite interesting because in ancient Greece, they didn't just adapt this instrument, they didn't just start to play it, but they developed different forms of it. According to the myth, this instrument was made by god Hermes, the god of communication and a lot of other things back in ancient Greece. And later on, even more important, they had a god of music. Apollon was a god of music, the god of the arts, and the god of the light, which is also quite symbolic. And this shows us a lot about how they had this kind of whole concept, as I said before, not only about music, but about mathematics, about astronomy, and about many, many things that were connected to each other. And yeah, of course, we have to remember that in a specific time in Greek antiquity, music was a science, not only an art. And this shows us a lot about how serious they were about music and how music could literally, change their lives. And of course, it was like a very important part of their educational system.
Yes. And you've collaborated a lot, haven't you, with other musicians? Tell me a bit about some of those.
Yes, actually, I had the chance to travel all around the world to perform in different kind of music festivals, but sometimes even presentation in different kind of universities, and sometimes to give lectures because it's something that it connects so many fields, but at the same time it's totally aesthetic the result. And my experience was actually amazing because I had this kind of first person experience that how the sound of the lira can match really, really in a beautiful way with the sound of instruments that many times are not so well known. For example, the Armenian duduk, a wind instrument that sounds a little bit like the clarinet, but has much more, how to say that, the sound of it is very, very unique. It sounds like someone is crying or something like that. I could describe it in a sentence. But also with other instruments like the sitar from India, with some amazing vocalists coming from Greece and the mountains of Epirus, where they have their own, pentatonic scale and they work a lot about this. But also from musicians all over the world. We almost 6 months ago we released the first Puffsis album for anyone who wants to check it. Pusis Puffsis got some really nice reviews from the Songlines magazine, which is focused on world music. And through this, we had the chance to collaborate with more artists all over the world because music was always like that. I think, was always to bring people together. Recently, we recorded also some songs with Ludovicos Tananogion. Ludovicos is a very famous narrator, musician from a village called Anoia. This is in Creta, where he actually you can find mandinades. Mandinades is a kind of lyric poems that are made from people who live in this village. They talk about life, death, love, and all of this in a very punctual, someone would say, way, and very direct way. And with him, had the chance to work on a theme that he wrote. It's called "The Color of Love." It's actually a beautiful song where he asks a lot of people what would be the color. Would be black, would be white like a jasmine, would be yellow like the sun. But of course, the answer never comes back. It's some kind of a rhetoric question. And hopefully soon we're going to record some more music together. So yeah, I think that the lyra step by step is taking her place not only to play ancient music but also to compose new music.
That's brilliant. That's so exciting. That's brilliant. Are you going to plan to come to the UK at all? Because I'd love to hear you over here.
We should actually. We are working now with Angie Lemon, a fellow friend and also collaborator there, to see how this can happen. We had the chance to perform there almost 5 years ago. I think it was in a festival called Music in the Dales. It's in the Castle of Bolton in North Yorkshire. A beautiful
Oh,
green landscape. We also had the chance to pass for a night in Richmond. We traveled to Manchester and so then we went there by car. And the experience was really, really, we felt really, really nice there. To be honest, there is nothing fixed for the moment for United Kingdom, but hopefully we'll do it in the future. Recently, we collaborate with Armand Tagour, who's a professor in the University of Oxford, about a book who's about 58 different pictures, not pictures, paintings that were made from the medieval time until now. And even though the lyra was not played for all these, centuries, the instrument as a symbol was there in different kind of paintings. And
oh,
Armand Tagour helped us to talk about the symbol of the lyra because apart from a musical instrument, it's really a symbol of a really, yeah, of the 5th century BC, but let's say of Greek antiquity, which is like one of the highest, I think, levels of human conscience and understanding about many, many things without using the technology maybe as we do today.
yeah. That's amazing. Would you be able to share some of the music with me so that I can put it on the podcast so that people can actually hear some
I
of your
would be
music?
I would be happy actually. We have a really nice recording from that we recorded live during the pandemic in the top of Olympus Mountain in the plateau of the Muses. This is like the Olympus Mountain still exists for someone who doesn't know the mythical, the
Yeah.
mountain of the gods is still there in Greece. It's the highest mountain. And I had the chance to travel there with my brothers, where we had the chance to record an on-spot improvisation next to Mythicus, which is the top of Olympus Mountain. And through a series that we did in some recordings in an open space in some mountains around Greece. And also, I think it would be quite interesting to share some music of what we did with Ludovίκος των Ανογίων. The language is in Greek, but someone can read the subtitles, which is like really, really touching. And some part of the Pafsis album, where someone can also find it in Spotify or YouTube or wherever.
Yeah.
So all kind of online platforms to listen to, because there is also some electronic elements there. There are some songs with a duduk, some others with some lyrics. And I think I would be more than happy to share this music with you and the audience, your audience as well.
Fantastic. And then I can put the links on the show notes so that people can actually get hold of the whole thing, but I can just play some clips so that people have got more of an idea.
Of course, this would be awesome because many people, including me, before we start to make these instruments and to start to play them, I didn't have a clear idea of what it is a lyra or what is the sound of the lyra. So I think that this is something quite interesting, not only for musicians, but for people with any kind of music interest. No, doesn't have to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. And the lyre is a beautiful instrument, isn't it? I mean, physically it's amazing to look at.
Totally, totally. Also has this kind of the construction of it and the whole myth that talks how Hermes made the first lyra. It's so symbolic, but also it's very, very interesting because it's totally actually can be played, for example, with someone with a left hand and the right hand in the exact same technique. It's
Ah,
totally symmetric. So yeah, there's also some details regarding the soundboard that is made from goat skin. This is why it's one of the few instruments that we have nowadays with a goat skin soundboard. Most of them are made with wood actually to have a bigger
mm,
sound. But again, in ancient Greece, the lyra was developed from what we said with the horns and this kind of a real turtle shell. This is how the first lyra was made according to the myth. To instruments like the kithara, the kithara was made the 5th century BC, which was made totally from wood. The kithara was also like a more elaborated version, a more sophisticated version of the formix. The formix is another music instrument totally made from wood that we read about in the work of Homer. In the famous Iliada, the Iliad and Odyssey, we find the Rhapsody, the people who used to play the formix in order to talk about their history. For us, it's mythology nowadays, or the Trojan War, but for them, there was their oral history. So the idea about using music in order to be able to improvise and to be able to memorize so many, the whole family tree of ancient Greek gods is really, really huge. I mean, I don't believe that even a Greek nowadays knows all the details about it. It's something really, really big. So through music, they were able to memorize such big texts in order to be able to reproduce them. And also quite interesting for someone who wants to read a little bit more about this, to check about the Homeric hymns. The first one of mnemosyne is the shorter one, but the most important one, because mnemosyne is the memory in ancient Greek. So it was short enough so someone would be able to remember and to memorize it in order to be able to recite it whenever the things were not going well.
Ah, it's fascinating. It's really interesting. It's brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I think that if you or ever someone will come to Thessaloniki, you are also most welcome to visit the Sikylon Museum, which is devoted to the epitaph of Sikylos, the most ancient complete Greek melody that is found to our days, written from Sikylos and devoted to Efterpi, the muse of music. Sikylos actually exists in Thessaloniki since 2016. Where we give guided tours and private concerts from visitors from all over the world. It's in the center of Thessaloniki. And this museum is interactive. So someone that can come can actually play the lyre, have a personal taste about the sound of it, because it's an instrument that is totally intuitive for someone who wants to learn how to play it. But in the same time, also come close to all the music albums that we did, collaborating with more musicians like Thanasis Klopas, Lina Palera, and musicians from all over the world, in order to promote our common music heritage, because I think this is something that belongs to all of us, being Greek or not. It doesn't matter. I think it's something that we.
Yes, and Thessaloniki is a fantastic city, isn't it? It's a great place to. I've been a couple of times, and I've been to Crete many times. So Greece has a special place in my heart. It's a fantastic part of the world.
Thessaloniki is quite interesting because also she became Greek like almost 100 years later than Athens and the south part of Greece. This is why many people can actually see or read a lot about the history of the Jewish people living in Thessaloniki, people from Armenia, from Turkey. It was actually a really cosmopolis, like a place from people from all over from different parts of the world with different religion, different languages. Of course, now it's different. These all things changed the last century. But again, someone can find all these kind of references in the food here, in the art, in the people who live here. And Creta is also another chapter. I will go there for 10 days to visit some friends around Creta. And Creta is also, it's really, really amazing. And for me, it is, of course, a part of Greece. But again, it has such a beautiful and unique culture that for me, it's also someone can go like for 3 weeks in Creta just to have an idea about the island, about the music heritage, the food, and all this.
Yes. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was really interesting to talk to you.
You are welcome. You are welcome to also, apart from Thessaloniki, to visit the Sikilo YouTube channel. Sikilo, you write it as you listen if you want to use a reference or a link about it.
Yeah.
Because we upload videos there every week with musicians visiting the museum from all over the world. So I think it can be quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I will definitely put the link to that in the show notes.
Great.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with Theodore Koumartzis. It was very interesting to hear him talking about the origins of music going back centuries. What you're listening to now is Theo Legiona Quattro Vientos. And I put some links into the show notes, so I hope you'll follow them and find out more about Theo and the work he's doing to keep ancient Greek music alive and relevant in today's society too. Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.